In my third year of growing tomatoes, I had blossom end rot on half my crop and splitting fruit on the other half. I bought a calcium spray. I bought a second calcium spray. I read every forum thread I could find. And by the end of that summer, I had lost more fruit than I'd saved. And I still didn't understand why. Here's what nobody told me: I didn't have two problems. I had one. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what's happening inside your tomatoes when you see that dark, leathery patch at the bottom of the fruit. You'll know why the skin splits open right before harvest. You'll know why calcium sprays almost never work. And you'll know the one change that fixes both issues at the same time. It's not a product. It's a rhythm. And I'll tell you right now, the fix has nothing to do with adding more calcium to your soil. Stay with me. Here's the thing about calcium that most gardening advice skips completely. Calcium doesn't move through a plant the way nitrogen or potassium does. It can't be pushed from cell to cell by the plant's own energy. It travels dissolved in water, pulled upward by transpiration. Think of it like a river. The water flows, and calcium rides it. Now, here's where tomatoes have a problem. The fruit is not the plant's priority. When water is scarce, the plant sends what's available to the leaves. First, they're doing the photosynthesis. They're keeping the whole system alive. The developing fruit, sitting at the end of that calcium river, gets whatever's left. And when that flow gets interrupted, which is exactly what happens when your soil goes from wet to dry to wet again in the space of a week or two, the fruit pays the price. That interruption is called a wet-dry-wet cycle, and it's the root cause of both the problems you're seeing. Blossom end rot appears when the fruit is roughly a third to half its final size. That's peak calcium demand. The cells at the blossom end the furthest point from the stem, the last stop on that calcium river collapse. They turn dark and leathery. The fruit looks diseased. It isn't. It's starved. Cracking happens slightly later, when fruit is closer to ripe. After a dry spell, a heavy rain or a generous watering causes the inside of the fruit to swell rapidly. The skin, which stopped expanding during the dry period, can't stretch fast enough. Radial cracks run from the stem downward. Concentric cracks ring the shoulder. Two different shapes. Same cause the plant went from drought to flood in the space of a few days. Now, about those calcium sprays. The reason they don't work, and this is the position of the Royal Horticultural Society on blossom end rot, is that foliar calcium cannot reach developing fruit in time to correct a deficiency that's already in progress. By the time you see the dark patch, those cells are already dead. You're treating a symptom that finished happening 2 weeks ago. The only correction happens at the root level, through consistent water flow, before the damage occurs. So let's talk about how most gardeners accidentally create this wet-dry-wet cycle. It rarely happens on purpose. It happens through 4 very common habits, and you've probably got at least one of them running in your garden right now. Mistake 1. Watering by calendar, not by soil. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or every evening after work. It feels responsible, and for a while it works. Then you hit a hot, dry week and your schedule leaves the soil cracking between sessions. Then it rains twice in 4 days, and you water anyway out of habit. And now the roots are sitting in excess moisture. The soil doesn't care what day it is. It only cares about what's in it. The fix for this one takes about 3 seconds. Push your finger into the soil 2 inches deep. Right at the drip line, that's the outer edge of the plant's canopy, where the feeder roots are most active. If the soil is dry at your second knuckle, water now. If it's still damp, wait. That's your whole watering schedule. Mistake 2. Shallow watering. This one is subtle because it looks like attentive gardening. A quick pass with the hose every day. The surface stays dark and damp, so it looks fine. But water applied in small amounts rarely penetrates beyond the top 3 or 4 inches of soil. Your tomato's root system, when healthy and given the right conditions, wants to reach down 8 to 10 inches. When you water shallowly and consistently, the roots follow the water upward. You end up with roots that have followed the water upward shallow, exposed, and at the mercy of every dry afternoon. Water deeply and less frequently. When you do water, let it run long enough to penetrate the full root zone. Then wait until that finger test tells you it's time again. Mistake 3. Bare or thin mulch. Mulch is not decoration. A 3 to 4 inch layer of organic mulch straw, wood chip, composted bark acts as a buffer between your soil and the outside world. It slows evaporation on hot days. It reduces temperature swings at the soil surface. It extends the window between waterings and, crucially, it smooths out the wet-dry cycle that's been damaging your fruit. A thin layer, or no mulch at all, means your soil goes from moist to dry faster than it ever needs to. Every dry spell becomes a potential calcium delivery interruption. University of California Cooperative Extension research on vegetable irrigation suggests a proper mulch layer can reduce soil moisture fluctuation significantly during dry spells. The mulch doesn't eliminate the need to water, but it buys you time. And time is what keeps that calcium river flowing steadily. Mistake 4. Treating the symptom. This is the one I did for an entire season. You see the blossom end rot, you buy the calcium spray, you apply it to the leaves and the developing fruit, and you feel like you're doing something. And 2 weeks later, there it is again because the wet-dry cycle is still running. And no amount of foliar spray can fix what's happening underground. The calcium is almost certainly already in your soil. Tomatoes grown in any reasonable garden soil or a well-made compost mix are not calcium deficient in the way we usually mean that phrase. The calcium is there. The water to carry it is inconsistent. That's the only thing that needs to change. Here's how to read what your tomatoes are actually telling you, because the fruit will show you exactly when the problem occurred if you know what to look for. Start by observing. Is the damage at the blossom end the bottom of the fruit? Opposite the stem, that's blossom end rot, and it means the calcium interruption happened early, when the fruit was small and demand was at its peak. Is the damage cracking near the shoulder, or running from the stem downward? That points to a moisture surge after a dry period. Later in fruit development, then ask yourself one question: has my watering been consistent over the last 3 weeks? Not in volume, necessarily. In rhythm, has the soil stayed in a steady range, damp but not wet, drying but never parched, or has it swung between extremes? And 9 times out of 10, the answer points the same direction. A wet-dry-wet cycle interrupted the calcium river at exactly the wrong moment for whichever fruit you're looking at. And the action is always the same. Restore the rhythm. Mulch the soil. Start using the finger test instead of the calendar. You won't save the fruit that's already showing damage, but you'll save every fruit that comes after it. Check the underside of your lower leaves as well. If you're seeing early signs of fungal issues alongside blossom end rot, that's a signal. Your watering may be irregular in timing too, not just frequency. The two problems often travel together in gardens where the rhythm is off. So here's what the correction looks like in practical terms. Start with depth. When you water your tomatoes, water slowly and long enough that moisture reaches the full root zone, 8 to 10 inches down. If you're not sure you're getting there, water for your usual time. Then push a trowel down 6 inches into the root zone an hour later. It should be visibly damp. If it's not, you need more time or slower delivery. Next, switch to the finger test. Stop the calendar. Every time you think it might be time to water, check the soil at the drip line first. 2 inches down. Second knuckle. Damp weight. Dry water now. Then audit your mulch. If you have less than 3 inches of organic material around your plants, top it up. Keep it a couple of inches away from the main stem. You don't want it sitting against the crown, but cover the rest of the root zone generously. And if you're mid-season with blossom end rot already present, keep the affected fruit on the plant if the damage is minor. The plant will sometimes still ripen them. And removing them stresses the plant without benefit. Put your energy into stabilizing the soil moisture for the fruit still developing. For next season, think about variety choice. Paste tomatos San Marzano. Roma are more prone to blossom end rot because of the elongated shape and the concentration of tissue at the blossom end. Worth knowing before you plant 20 of them. If you've had repeated cracking with heirlooms like Cherokee Purple or Brandywine, those thinner skins are genuinely less forgiving of moisture swings. A crack-resistant variety like Crimson Crush or Furline F1 can absorb more fluctuation without splitting. Worth knowing going in. Now, here's what I promised you at the start. And it's not complicated. But it's something most gardeners never actually check. Push your finger down through your mulch layer and into the soil beneath it. If the soil immediately under the mulch is cool and slightly damp even on a warm afternoon, your mulch is doing its job. If it's dry and warm within an inch or two below the surface, your layer is either too thin or it's compacted and no longer breathing. In that case, fluff it up with a fork, add more material on top, and check again in a few days. Mulch that is compacted into a flat mat can shed water rather than hold it. The soil beneath can actually dry out faster than bare soil in some conditions. It needs air and texture to work properly. 10 seconds. But now you know whether your moisture buffer is actually functioning or just sitting there looking like it is. Here's what I want you to take away from all of this. Blossom end rot and cracking are not bad luck. They are not a sign that you've got diseased or difficult plants. They are your tomatoes telling you, clearly and consistently, that the calcium river got interrupted. Keep the water moving steadily, not heavily. Not infrequently, but steadily, and the plant handles the rest. That is the one system underneath both of those problems. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. I spent a whole summer spraying calcium on leaves that didn't need calcium sprayed on them. I hope this saves you from doing the same. If you've had blossom end rot or cracking this season, drop a comment below and tell me which variety you were growing. I'm genuinely curious whether the pattern holds paste types and heirlooms seem to come up most often, but I'd love to know what you've seen in your own garden. And if this helped you understand what was actually going on underneath the problem, there's more where this came from. Take care of those roots, and the tomatoes will take care of you.